Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Bitcoin Weather Report with special guest Sawcruhteez and very special guest Tone Vase. Good morning, boys. How are you?
Howdy.
Morning. Well, it's 9 p.m. for me. I just literally walked into my cabin in the woods of Pennsylvania and wanted to make this show. I missed the last show you did with Socrates, so I'm going to put myself on mute. And unless I have a specific question, it's all you guys. I'm like a fly on the wall here.
Fantastic. Sock, how are
Great,
you,
great to
mate?
see you.
You know what? It's a massive typhoon is coming through Tokyo right now, so we'll see how my internet holds up. I'm still running the 7-Eleven discounted Wi-Fi, so we'll see how that plays out, but hopefully it goes fine. All right, well, without any further ado, I'll just quickly jump into my charts just to review what Tony and I spoke about last night on the daily high. Look, it played out pretty well on my end. I'm looking at the 15-minute time frame now. Last night when we did the show, the price was sort of approximately 59. We were just touching on 59, and I had closed out my long trade that I entered from 52,200 yesterday. And at exactly the same time, I put a short trade on because I just didn't like the structure of the market at all. And throughout that day, I was in really, really good profit. I put the trade on at a good time, and then it came back to this like inverse head and shoulders thing, and I got to exactly my entry price during our show last night. But I did stay in that trade, and when I put a stop loss on it about almost at 60,000, just below 60,000. And last night when I was going to bed, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna get stopped out of this trade. But it's Shogunai, it's all good. And then when I woke up in the morning, it was down here at 57,200 something, and I just closed the trade out, and I was very happy with that short trade that I put on, and even more happy that I closed my long trade from 52. Where it stands right now, I mean, like it's had its little pop back up, just come up to the 30 simple moving average here. This is a 15-minute time frame, obviously, and it is getting its rejection now. So I mean, if it goes below that, if we come down and retrace that 56,800 mark around here with the MRI support and resistances on the 15-minute time frame, I absolutely can see us putting another leg down in. That's just a real short-term time frame here on the daily and whatnot. It looks poor, obviously, but this is what I said in last night's show. I don't know if we're going to come back down and retest these lows down here at 49.50 for sure. I think that there's a really good chance that this holds. But I said in last night's show, I could definitely see us coming down to 56, and we have hit 56 with no signs of slowing down as it stands right now. I do want this to hold in this zone and stay above, sort of 53 to put in this like W pattern higher low here, which could reverse the structure. But that's all speculation at this point. We are where we are right now, and I don't know. There's not a long trade on for me right now. Bangbox did put on a trade last night, which was an unsuccessful trade, but I get why it did it, and it was a fairly standard kind of trade that we put on. Let me see if I can bring this up here. Just 1 second, go on the settings. This is just on my end. Turn these off. Turn this off. Yeah, so last night as this loads, we put in the this is the bot trade. Obviously, we put in the trade here at 59,450, had an initial stop loss in. As the price moved up, the stop loss moved up, and we got out here 4 or 5% loss on the trade. I'm totally fine with that. The market looked like it was going to kick off a little bit, and we got out and saved ourselves liquidation, So overall, not too bad. As I come back to you now, the price is continually dropping, so we'll see how it goes. Before you go into it, mate, please like and subscribe. Show your love for Sawcruhteez in the comment section. Use the affiliate links we have in the description below. Highly urge you to do it. Some great exchanges there. Join the Discord group. Join the bot. It's a free trading bot. It's been really good. So, well, anyway, Sawcruhteez, how do you see the market? Do you disagree? Do you agree? Let's take
I
us
think
through it,
we're
mate.
looking at some pretty similar levels, and I'll be happy to dive right into my charts. Before doing that, I'm kind of curious what your guys' opinion is about so the title of the stream is, could this be the last chance to buy under 60K? Or how are you feeling? Are you thinking we're going to spend some time under 60, maybe even retest 50? Or are you thinking there's a pretty decent probability that the market could make a final bottom that lasts for a new all-time high? What are you thinking?
Well,
Can I
I'll
comment
answer
on
that.
that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
your answers.
please, Tone. Comment.
Okay, so I should have mentioned the moment I got off the airplane, it was still right before 4 p.m. Eastern time. And when I got on the airplane, Bitcoin was at 60,000. And then when I got off the airplane, Bitcoin was at 57,000. And I just like panic sold my position. So
40%.
I am I don't have a long position in Bitcoin right now. Here's what I know. What I know is that in October, Bitcoin's going to be rising. But between now and October, I have zero opinions, and I may not like there's no need to do any shows because Bitcoin could be at 65,000 tomorrow. It could also be at 35,000 tomorrow. But all I know with certainty that going right before the election and through the election, like sometime in October, Bitcoin is going to start its bull market. It can start its bull market from 20,000, or it can start its bull market from 72,000. Until that day comes, anything can happen, and all three things can happen. We can go up, then down, then up. We can go down, then up, then down. So that's my opinion for the next 3 months.
Can I go ahead? That's
Sorry,
I would
I'm curious why you're focusing on October. Is that entirely due to the election, or is it anything else?
It's multiple things. It's a combination of general cycles. The stock market always, not always, but most of the time, the stock market bottoms in October and starts its bull run. We have the election coming up. We also have so much geopolitical uncertainty. And while I don't think the world's going to be in a better place come October, I think there'll be a little more certainty in October. And this is one of the other things that I say. When there is uncertainty, people tend to exit speculative assets and enter cash. When there is certainty, people tend to be, more, I guess, risk takers, even when that certainty is bad. So if we know World War III has begun, at least it's certainty. If we know Donald Trump is president and, doesn't have another assassination attempt before the election, it's certainty. So whenever there is certainty, it's good for speculative assets. Whenever there is uncertainty, it's bad for speculative assets. And right now, between what happened in Japan, between we don't know what's going to happen with the election. We don't know if Iran's going to attack Israel any minute. Ukraine just decided to invade Russia. There's just so much uncertainty right now. And also, another factor is eventually, and I don't know when that eventually is, and I'm guessing it's going to come at around the end of the year. The ETFs continuing to buy more Bitcoin than there is supply. And eventually, there's going to be no Bitcoin left for them to buy like 1,000, 2,000 Bitcoin per day. There's not going to be the liquidity. That crunch is coming. The Mt. Gox thing is going to be fully over. That's still super confusing. I know Germany already sold. I think come mid-October, going into the election, there'll be a lot more certainty in the world, which will create the perfect environment for speculative assets to rise.
All right, my 2 cents. To Sawcruhteez' question, do you think we'll get below 60, or do you think that we'll stay above 60? And do you think that's the last time we'll see it, like the name of the show? My answer is the same as Tone's, but it's different to Tone's, and I'll explain why. So Tone said really like tongue in cheek that there's no point to do a show like for the next few months, because the price could go down, the price could go up either way. I think this is the time to pay attention more than ever. Do you know what I mean? Like you can tune out when we're in a rampant bull market. You can tune out when we're, you know, sort of just trending sideways. But this, if the market does crash, I agree with Tone that long term we've got a great opportunity. So even last week when we crashed down to 50, what do we get to, 53, something like that?
Yeah.
What do we get to last
49.
week? You know,
49.
49.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was paying high attention during that point and put a really good long trade on at 52, which I've already closed yesterday, but it got me great profit. So I want to identify a great time to load up if we are to continue lower. And if we do go higher, I want to be on the right, you know, if we go above 60, 62, I want to be long there as well. So this is absolutely maximum time to pay attention in my books. So
There's one more factor I want to throw in there.
Yep.
The Federal Reserve has not touched rates all year long, as I've been saying, basically. But they're going to do something in September. I think they're going to lower the rate. That's another factor. The CPI numbers just came in. There's going to be one more CPI number coming out. There's going to be another unemployment number. This is the only time the Fed can lower the rate. And we don't know what kind of an effect that will have on the market. Plus the speculation, will they do it? Will they do it 50 basis points? Will they do 25 basis points? Because their next meeting is like the day before the election. And they're not going to touch the rate like the day before the election. And in December, no one's going to care. So this is the biggest Fed meeting of the year as well, and it's happening mid-September.
Very interesting. One other thing that you brought up that I'm really interested in talking to you about, do you really think that these the BlackRocks and the ETF providers, do you really think that they're backing their ETFs with Bitcoin?
Yes, 100%. Yes.
100%?
No. Yeah. Yeah. No. Some of those ETFs, they literally have the address public, or like this. Some of them, right? No. It's yes, they're backing their ETFs with the Bitcoin. Like it's people that even publish the stats of how much Bitcoin these ETFs are buying. They're actually publishing these stats before the numbers are even posted to their own websites. So that means that some of these websites that are tracking it, they're actually tracking the ETF purchases through the addresses.
Okay, that's what I've been trying to find is some public addresses that I could just verify all this Bitcoin being bought. And the only thing that I can find is a partnership between BlackRock and Coinbase, where Coinbase is agreeing to be the custody so that it's off chain. And these are the companies that are selling, they're naked shorting GameStop for over 100% of the float. I am of the opinion that not every one of these ETFs is fully backing their products when they sell one Bitcoin in an ETF. They get 55 days to deliver, and they've got partnerships with hedge funds that like to bet against retail. And my opinion is that when they're selling ETFs, they're telling their buddies to go ahead and short it, and then they're having a partnership with Coinbase in case, because they know nobody's going to ever claim this Bitcoin. Maybe 10% on the highest end of people that buy a Bitcoin ETF are actually going to say, hey, I want that Bitcoin. They know that. And it's fractional reserve banking tactics that these businesses have used in every market. So I'm really questioning. I'll have to look into what you just talked about.
I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is, look, before these companies got into this ETF Bitcoin business, they saw Mt. Gox. They saw FTX. I mean, like the Wall Street people aren't stupid.
They just got stuck in a GameStop short. I mean, the same people are now stuck in that GameStop short and going to.
But that's the thing, right? It's not the same people. The GameStop short people are hedge funds that can do whatever they want. This is different. This is institutional. They are following the rules. Like Fidelity is definitely, they're self-custodying it. Like that address may or may not be public, but they're self-custody it. What do you call it? Bitwise, their address is public. ARK Invest, 100% is holding the Bitcoin. I know we both know people that work at ARK Invest near the top of that product. And BlackRock is definitely holding the Bitcoin because, especially in the case of BlackRock, I think they know, especially how much Bitcoin they're holding. The play is to monopolize and try to hold all the Bitcoin. They're looking further ahead. Well, like I'm like my concern is, hey, I wish BlackRock was cheating and not holding the Bitcoin. That would be I would rather have that. My concern is that BlackRock is actually holding the Bitcoin and they're holding way too much and it's accelerating.
I hear you, and I am really hesitant to trust BlackRock that they're backing their products one-to-one with Bitcoin, with their history, and they're not willing to share a public address. BlackRock specifically, the one that I'm questioning, that are they cornering this market? Are they legitimately cornering this market? Or are they doing from what I can tell, they've always done, which is sell unbacked stuff and use these fractional reserve tactics to basically manipulate the price down. If they're able to satisfy this demand, there's this new swell of demand coming, and they're able to sell them paper ETFs without buying the Bitcoin. And then they have their buddies at the hedge funds who they work with, just like Alameda did with FTX. I'm convinced that FTX's business model was entirely modeled around what these guys have been doing.
Yeah, but no, but look how that ended, right? Like BlackRock doesn't want to end up like FTX.
I mean, absolutely right. And these are the guys who could end up like that with like one stock being short squeezed. I mean, I
don't know. I don't think so. I think look, we all agree that BlackRock is evil, but I think the more evil thing for them to do is to actually buy all that Bitcoin instead of pretending like they have the Bitcoin like FTX. That is the more evil play, which is why I believe they're holding the Bitcoin.
It's a really interesting topic, and I think that they are having a partnership with Coinbase that allows them to rehypothecate Bitcoin if it's ever needed physical Bitcoin. That's their sort of evil playbook. That for me, when I'm looking at this, that's how I think they're really trying to manipulate the price down. And that's kind of my opinion. Is I don't think we should really be trusting that these ETFs are all backing their products when it's hard to confirm that. These are the people that reason why we got into this space are because these people are so evil. And now that everybody's starting to trust them, just it makes me uneasy.
Did you say
be a contrarian to look for ways that maybe they aren't doing that? Maybe
did you say is there a 50-day cycle or a 90-day cycle before they have to?
I believe it's a 55-day failure to deliver arrangement. So they would have 55 days to buy the Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And if their hedge fund buddies are shorting it, they will have 55 days to get a lower price to get out. And
well, we'll build a model that shows a 55-day cycle in the Bitcoin price. If that's the case, it might not be bang on 55 days, but within a 55-day period, you would have to see a high to low in that spectrum.
But here's the problem: is nobody is claiming their Bitcoin. Nobody is buying a Bitcoin ETF, and then saying, "Hey, deliver me that Bitcoin." If a big player, like, to prove that they're actually buying it, we need somebody like Roaring Kitty, like somebody like a big player, a big wave of people who say, "Hey, I'm declaring I want my Bitcoin now. Send it to me on chain to this address." That would start the 55-day window, and nobody's doing that right now. There's not hardly anybody who's going to be buying this Bitcoin ETF and then asking for delivery, because they would just buy the Bitcoin, and they know this. It's like every bank. It's like when the poker sites went down. Getting a little off topic here, but they understood that most people aren't going to lose, and they're going to withdraw, and so we can start dipping into this honeypot, and that always ends the same way. And just because we had an FTX, and just because we've had 100 other examples, history repeats itself. And these guys aren't going to learn from that. They're going to think that they can manipulate better next time. And this is my opinion.
It's a cool conspiracy theory, and but I still think that that's a good possibility for if that is true, and I have no evidence that it's true, then the price is going to go lower, but only artificially go lower because it's getting pumped by your hedge funds there, and it's a good opportunity to buy. So without any further ado, what are you seeing in the chart, Sock?
Excellent. And thanks for entertaining my sidetrack there, because these are some things I've been thinking a lot about and haven't really got the chance to chat with some people like you, especially on stream. So,
Mate, if you're going down the conspiracy theory route, you've got my ears open. I love
excellent. That's where my brain goes every single time. Okay, hopefully I'm sharing the right screen here. Yep. Okie dokie. So yeah, just like last time, we'll start with free charts that are always available, the charts that I'm looking at on my screen every day. You can all see in real time when I make an update, a new annotation. It will show on your chart if you go to alphaanalysis.io and then hover over charts. We'll start with the highest time frames and zoom in. So CMA and EXA are going to be the weekly and daily charts. So we will go ahead and start with the weekly here. So it's kind of had this eyeball out here for this last week or so. This is the area that I'm eyeing for support, and to kind of start out, I don't really think that this is the last time to buy under 60K, but if we get the right reaction off of this candle here, then it very well could be, because when prices get left behind, they get left behind in the blink of an eye. And there's just so much demand across the world for Bitcoin that once it gets going, once the cat gets out of the bag and it breaks resistance, yeah, it could do so just as quickly, if not more quickly, than we've seen it move down. So this candle here was really interesting for me because, let's see, we failed to close above 60,000, which I really wanted. A close above 60,000, a close above this 9 LSM. The blue moving average is kind of what will determine my trend for more swingy stuff, opposed to more longer term multi-month stuff. So this was good and bad. Good that it closed green. Great wick, beautiful wick. And now we are in a position where we should see some really strong support by the 2 low moving average, which is currently at 51.2. And that's also, we kind of expect this wick space to get refilled, like to just have a wick like this and take off and leave it behind without ever retesting that is very rare, very low probability. So I think the highest probability from here is to kind of refill this wick space. I will be targeting like the median, which is right in line with this 2 low MA. So I think there's going to be a lot of support here, and this will be my next critical crossroads. The last stream that I did, we were like literally testing the level for me. So that was fun to do that live, and I won't be interested at all in buying until we get to here. If we do, if we don't, then I'll just be happy to kind of get left behind. I'm also flat in spot in my trading account, and we'll be able to take a look at where and why on the daily. So here's the daily chart. A couple of things that are being highlighted here. First of all is this sell signal that we just had in the CMA, the Coates moving average. It's something that can work really well for swing trades and kind of pivot points. It's based on a 9 candle moving average and in the prior 2 high and 2 low moving averages. And these crosses are what signal. So right here, we had the 9 LSM cross above the 2 high, and that is the first step to a sell signal. The next step is either to get confirmation from a crossover in the EXA here, or to have it cross back below the 2 high. So we got a real nice sell signal there on the 13th, which was confirmed strongly by this RSI. The RSI broke into bullish territory back on the 14th of July, stayed up there until right about here, broke that down on the opening of the month. And then when you break down 50, you look for a throwback to 50 to be the kind of selling opportunity. You expect it to be a dead cat bounce. maybe wait for bullish divergence like we got here, kind of something like that, and use this to kind of confirm trend who is in control. So now we've got the cross and the EXA fresh. We had the CMA sell, and then we've got this RSI below 50. So I mean, everything is bearish, and that's main reason why I am very patiently waiting in spot and targeting my next critical horizontal level right around 52, 51.5. And then if I'm not like just going to be setting like blind limit orders in there or something like that, what I would do is wait for kind of the inverse of this to what I like to say, catch a falling spoon opposed to catch a falling knife. Like here's a knife and here's a kind of more of a spoon where it has some time to kind of roll over and should increase the probability. Nothing will be certain. Obviously, you're always going to get stopped out at a loss on anything you use. But for me, instead of just like setting blind limit orders at where I view as support, I wait for price to test that. And then I wait for confirmation from crossovers in this 9 LSM. When it's a healthy trend, it should stay in the middle and stay balanced. And then once it gets signs of exhaustion, that's when we should start seeing it cross over so that it's not like completely catching a falling knife or trying to sell a locomotive. I don't know what you call it. But so yeah, the daily is fully in bearish territory and telling me to keep an eye out on this weekly candle. Also, on the other side of the token is this weekly RSI, which is stubbornly remaining in bull zone. It's like the last bullish indicator that I can really find, and it is an important one. Notice how we broke through. Let's see here, 50 back. Let's see here. January 16th, when price was around 20,000. So this was the last bull trend from 20 to 70. It started with strong confirmation from this RSI leading indicator. Notice how price is still under resistance, but the RSI had firmly broken through and turned it into support. So it's a really good leading indicator. And then as we did break through, every time it threw back to 50, that became a really great buying opportunity here and here. And then we got overbought. It didn't even div. We didn't get a divergence because price was so strong. And now you would expect that next throwback to 50 to be a buying opportunity, which it's been a hellish one, but it is stubbornly staying up there. And it's a leading indicator, which is really important to me because if price was getting ready to just melt through, I would expect this to do it first and turn 50 kind of into resistance, something like this. When price tries to break down, but the RSI isn't, it's kind of leading, saying that this isn't broken yet. Be careful selling down here. Maybe wait for some confirmation and a throwback like we see here. So that weekly RSI is something to pay close attention to, and I'll be paying very close attention for this to cross back over. If this crosses bullish with the RSI above 50, that would be like 2 out of 3 steps for. Then I would just want to see a close above the 9 LSM, and it would be all systems go. Wouldn't necessarily be waiting for that. I focus on the daily to signal my swing trades, but use the weekly to determine my bias. So that's why I'm going to be very hesitant if we see anything bullish, any bullish setups on the daily. I'm going to be viewing that as an opportunity to kind of trim or cover short exposure, as long as the weekly hasn't checked all the boxes to turn back bullish. So patiently sitting on my hands, but knowing that if this crosses back bullish and we close above the LSM, specifically if we're able to refill this wick space, I mean, this is a serious candle. It might, it's 40, this is showing 46 on one exchange. Let's use the index here. So it's showing 49 to 63, like what's that, like a $14,000 candle? I mean, that's wiped out some serious liquidity. And when price takes out liquidity, it generally likes to move fast to leave people behind that were stuck selling there. So that 20% move up and down each week. Like I'm on kind of Matt's side of the fence where it's like, this is time to pay attention. It's absolutely a time where we could continue to get frustrated with this choppy environment through October. But this volatility is serious. And for for swing traders specifically, I think this should be a really good time to capitalize on these 20-30% range. For position trading, on the other hand, looking for multi-month moves, this is, I would think, an area to absolutely stay away from, as the volatility has all come intra-month. So a couple more charts. Again, MSR is available for free for Bitcoin only for my preferred timeframes, 4 hour and 1 hour. So if you're somebody who only tracks Bitcoin, you only care about Bitcoin, there's really no reason to ever even purchase the indicator, because it's free in real time on the website here, Alpha Analysis. So this is updated real time, but just for Bitcoin. So here we see, again, a big confluence of resistance that we've been keeping a close eye on to kind of remove some of the illustrations, as charts will get very cluttered. But this was a big sell signal that we were paying close attention to in my my daily report that I do to cover these charts, because we had this marker, which is this horizontal. This is the critical level that kind of confirms that the market is actually moving. The bear trend was signaled here. And when we're below here, we're moving down. When we're above here, we're chopping. So here we've got something important happening with the 200 moving average crossing below this critical level. So we see that price pull, it kind of treated like a death cross, where you look for a price to pull up and into it and then be resistance. So here we had price pulling up and into this beach after that big move down. It made a significant move, plus 30%. This is the index, so 30% to the upside. And it made a lot of people bullish, but not MSR. MSR is focused on these longer term trends, and it's saying like, no, like this is a bounce to sell, because we are below the beach. We are below the marker. We just melted down through new lows. And then it retested again like it likes to do. So now we'll be kind of keeping an eye on this, as that's an area to kind of trim short exposure. Should kind of could lead to a bounce, that sort of thing. But the higher time frames are saying kind of forget about this. Think about 50, 51, 52. So daily is fully bearish. The 4 hour is firmly bearish and is now moving. And so yeah, that's confluence. We'll take a look at the 1 hour, which I am afraid to report is also fully bearish. Every time frame I'm looking at is bearish, and this one has stayed. It never went above the marker. When it reversed on the 2nd, up around 63, it fell down and then bounced back up to retest that kind of area for resistance, which is much more bearish than kind of chopping above it and then coming back down. So the 1 hour is showing that this is a bounce to sell, and now it's kind of ready to start moving back down now that it's done its thing up around the beach and ocean area. This is where it's ready to start moving again. Just the last important chart to me that signals rarely, but it's really important when it does. And it's something that is largely based on what I learned from Ugly Old Goat. It's called the FOMO Finder, and it's again available for free here. Ooh, nice. We're getting a little signal. Nice. On Alpha Analysis, what it does is it uses the futures premium and the funding rates to determine if the market is in a state of greed, FOMO, panic, or capitulation. And I found this to be a very, very useful tool. It was inspired by like the Fear Greed Index, which anybody that's tried to use that over the last year, like in real time, over the last few years for a full market cycle, you know that it just doesn't really work. It's like signaling all the time. It'll say we're FOMOing when we're like chopping for months on end. So I think that this is a really, really good tool because when we are in backwardation, the market is basically capitulating. It's almost.
I was just going to ask you about that. Are we getting near to backwardation now?
So now we are getting dwindling futures premiums, which is the first sign. So when we have some like negative funding plus like say futures are getting close to par, they're below their normal, that's going to signal panic. So it's saying that futures are oversold and the negative funding is something we all know doesn't happen very much. So the futures are oversold and so is the perps getting overshorted, oversold. It's not to an extreme level. We look for like maybe a 3.5 standard deviation move to make it capitulation or FOMO, and then maybe 2 to 3.5 standard deviation would be panic or greed. I don't think panic or greed is a signal. It's something to pay very close attention to because it could become a signal very fast. So I'm happy to see some panic here, and something I've been kind of talking about is if this thing gives me capitulation for 8+ hours at any time, at any price, I'm going to start strongly concluding that the bottom is in. That's kind of one thing that I wait for when we have multi-month bear markets. That last move down to below 50, it didn't cause capitulation, and it really bothered me. And I was like, I would be bullish as hell if we were seeing capitulation readings right now or backwardation. I would just be very bullish, and not seeing that as like,
so I'd love to work with you, mate, to get this capitulation backwardation plotted onto a trading view chart as an indicator. We could talk about that off script. I'd love to see where it, there it is right there.
That is something we've looked at. I think the best solution we came up with is we had to download all the data ourselves straight from BitMEX. That's the funding and futures premium that we've always trusted the most. So we've had to get all their pricing data onto our server, and then we were able to create our own chart. So this is another reason why I'm such a big proponent of this over the fear greed index. I've never seen it show a historical chart with historical signals, so you can see where it was right and where it was very wrong. So here we can zoom in to certain areas. Let's just start with the most recent market. So let's take it back to the low by zooming in here. And I'm not sure. Let's see, I can probably zoom in here too. Here we can see at the bottom, we just had like 2 months of panic and capitulation. And anybody who was around during that time can attest to, yeah, the market was freaking capitulating when we were below 20K. And it was doing it for a while, and it did it in a different way where it wasn't like what we got after the COVID capitulation, where it was just a V, straight down, straight back up. This was like a really painful, more like a 2016, where it was just like a long, low volatility, straight sideways, straight chop, but it was panic. There was backwardation, there was negative funding. It was really cheap for bulls to buy, and the price was at a really good level. So then we can kind of see through the run where we did get some, again, like the signals that I say, the levels that I say aren't really signals, the greed. So here we get some greed on the way up, but it's not FOMO, which is a big difference. And we even got capitulation or panic readings on these little moves down. Like we were consolidating sideways, price was going up, and the market was getting panicked readings because it was getting overshorted, I would assume. And then once we kind of got above 60, we started seeing prolonged FOMO, where it was like a week plus price movement up, no dips. People start just frothing at the mouths, and it's seen in the futures premium now becomes double its average, and the funding rates become so expensive that it becomes a lot of trades become on the table for bears. So let's just look at the most recent to see what we've seen and why I'm not really just not loving it. Like right here, like I said, if that just would have been capitulation for a couple hours, there would be some really strong-handed bulls that bought backwardation and negative funding that would be in a really strong position to not let this price flirt with their entry, because that was a hard entry to get. You had to be on top of it. But it wasn't capitulation. It was just panic. So I'm like still very hesitant.
Yeah, I mean, I got it and closed it yesterday. I got it and closed it yesterday, and it was a trade that I wanted to stay in for years, and didn't. So I wonder how many other people are thinking the same. You know,
it's that environment where it's like there's so much indecision, and like Tone was saying, there's like so much risk. It's such a risk-on environment. Excuse me, risk-off environment. People are not wanting to hold risky assets. Where strong hand people that believe in Bitcoin from companies to countries are going in hand over fist right now, because they're realizing, like, if Trump gets elected, like if the United States really starts holding Bitcoin in a reserve, well, it's now or never. Like, I'm not going to wait for that to buy. I'm going to take my position now. Then you've got others who are like, look, I want to be in gold. I'm not interested in I want to be in cash and gold and wait for a better time. So it's a huge fight. It's a massive fight, and the volume switching hands is something to pay attention to. If there's a lot of volume that switches hands in a short amount of time, then that price could be really, really solid support. Remains to be seen.
So if we go below 50, let's just say we get below 50 and we put in a lower low than the 49 or whatever it was, 48 last week. I mean, the market structure will look poor, but some of those like capitulation indicators and the backwardation will start to come into play at that point. A lot of alphanumeric stuff, my indicator stuff might start firing down those levels as well as buy signals, which are very rare. Would you, at what price, do you have a price or a requirement that you would, which might be that capitulation that you'd be interested in? Or is there a point where it gets too low where you're like, no, I got to wait longer. What are you thinking?
Yeah, great question. Because we all want to buy the dips, but then we get stuck buying the dips that keep on dipping, right?
Right.
That is obviously something that is kind of one of the hard parts of actively trading consistently day in and day out, is knowing how to deal with what he just said. So for me, if we get capitulation readings, I would wait to see proper reaction in the price. Like if we're just falling, capitulating, well, I'm sitting up on my seat thinking, okay, we are going to be bottoming soon. If we're seeing prolonged capitulation for 8+ hours, where you have a whole day of people just panicking and freaking out and price melting straight down, I'm going to be like a sniper, like with my finger on a trigger, knowing exactly what to wait for.
The tricky thing, just to jump in on for a second, I've had really good success at buying the bottoms, luckily. But the trouble that I find with most people, and it's sort of what you've just said, they wait for a sign of strength to get in. So like they're watching the falling knife, and then they want to see a little bit of a recovery and then into strength. But very, very often, that's a hard buy for me, because that little bit of strength could be a 20% gap. And if I'm using 10x leverage, that's liquidation. So like where you want your stop loss to be is already like completely wicked and eaten that wick away like it did last week, where people were waiting for strength. But they got back in at 58 when we went down at 48. It's too big a gap already for me. So I need to try and catch the falling knife.
Yeah, and that's I think something that's very important for listeners here is each time that Matthew and I have talked, we've kind of come to how we trade differently, and no trader is going to trade the same. What's critical is understanding your risk, understanding what you are waiting for. And that's what I just want to say is so important for listeners listening to us. It's so easy to fall into that trap of, well, I'm just going to wait for Sawcruhteez to turn bullish, and then I'm in. And that's what you got to really, really stay away from. And I would also say that during these times right now, this is really the time, in my opinion, to scale down leverage to the lowest amount. Like leverage should always kind of be a spectrum, where when we're in a really highly confident environment. Like we're moving, we're making money, we're making good trades. We kind of scale to the higher end of the leverage when it's more an area of certainty, and everybody has their own spectrum. So right now, whatever that spectrum is for you, for me, I'm just looking at spot and really not. I'm not really trying to short this right now. I'm mostly interested in being in spot and being ready to quickly act and quickly buy it if we get the right setup. If we get back up above 65, 70, it starts making more sense for me. So yeah, I'm in a position where I'm thinking it's a really good time to limit leverage. And I'll just go ahead and share my screen once more very quickly. Okay, because like you said, that would be the exact problem for me. The type of confirmation that I'm looking for will require very low leverage, if any at all. And those of you that have used MSR on the 4-hour, you know that these signals come with a lot of risk. Like let's just see the last signal. It's a 18% stop loss that this requires. So that's a situation where you're really not using leverage, maybe 1x if you're really interested in shorting. But my stuff is very different from Matthew's, just like it was very different from Joe Saz's, who was focused more on intraday, higher leverage. So just want to clarify that what's good for him, yeah, I'm going to be waiting for. And I'll miss out on some stuff, but that's just how my model works. So what I'm really going to be looking for is kind of what we have already talked about, is the kind of the spooning action, where when you get big volatility is generally followed by tight consolidation that gets narrower and narrower, where the range gets tighter and tighter. I consider it volatility, big moves. Like this is a really loud environment. I want it to be a little quieter, where I want these small daily candles that everybody's chasing. I'm waiting for some really small candles inside the prior candles to give a opportunity for this LSM and EXA to roll over. See, like right here, it only took one green candle for this close above the LSM, and it got a bullish cross in the EXA. Right here that's what I'd be looking for, is like the capitulation to happen here, and then a few days where everybody's licking their wounds and up trying to recover emotionally. That's what I would be waiting for. And yes, it would require likely more risk than lower timeframes. Like people are focusing on lower timeframes, maybe wouldn't be interested in that sort of risk. But this is the sort of situation. What you asked is like, if there's a price, if the capitulation happens, I don't care what price it's at. If it happens, I would be a buyer as long as we get the proper reaction. Because the thing with capitulation, once you start capitulating, price could literally fall 50% in a few hours, like we saw in COVID after that COVID dump that went from, I don't know, 10,000 down to 3 in the blink of an eye. It was like we started capitulating at like 6,000, and then we fell to 3 in a couple hours. So that's what I'm waiting for, is that proper reaction after prolonged capitulation, and being very careful about what could happen in between.
Yep. Unbelievable. Fantastic. Tone, any thoughts before we wrap it up?
Sawcruhteez, I'd love to know your longer term picture, right? Like everything you discussed is pretty much short term. What's your outlook for end of year? And what about next year?
Yeah, great question. And I will happily admit that I am kind of, I'm as uncertain as I've ever been. Like my whole career with Bitcoin, it's been like buy before the halving, buy the hype, sell the news, buy the dip. And I am everything. This is different for me. This is completely unprecedented to have a halving 4 months ago and be at lower prices, creating lower highs and lower lows on the weekly. I was remaining stubbornly bullish. I'll go ahead and share once more and Appreciate you asking that.
Yeah, because this is literally like the opposite show of what I do with Mark Wood. I don't know if you get a chance to catch the shows I do with Mark Wood once a week, and like we're mostly talking like Bitcoin for the next 12 months. We don't even pull up anything sub daily. Like we even forget to show the daily chart sometimes. We're going weekly, monthly. We're looking at like the long-term picture. So it's good that there's a show like this that focuses on the much more shorter term picture.
So
Yep.
this chart is kind of what has me feeling so uncomfortable. I was as convinced as ever that we were starting a new hyperwave right around a halving, and it was looking perfect. And I even in my report went against hyperwave rules right here. Well, I said I was kind of being stubbornly bullish. Right here, we closed below this trend line. Hyperwave theory says one weekly close below the trend line and it's done. Hyperwave also says that you don't have a hyperwave in phase 2. You have to wait for phase 3 before it even becomes a hyperwave. My opinion is Bitcoin is so prone to go parabolic that if we get multi-months, like a year of consolidation below a horizontal, and then we break out and get this trend line, I'm not waiting for phase 3. I'm saying like, look, I'm believing we're starting the next hyperwave now, specifically because the proximity to the halving. So on this candle, I was like really bothered by the close below not only the trend line but also this low. And the only thing that kept me waiting for more confirmation was this RSI being in a fully bullish, like by this trend line touch sort of posture. So I was like biting, like gritting, biting my cheeks, like really hoping that this would provide a bottom and kind of be a shakeout before the breakout, a bear trap. And then that reaction that we got sent price straight to 70,000. This was as Donald Trump is talking, actually as Elizabeth Warren, Senator Elizabeth Warren introducing a bill to hold Bitcoin in physical reserves, which automatically signals the rest of the world that like you probably want to start buying yourself. I was just I was as convinced as ever that the next bull run was starting here as Donald Trump was talking at Nashville. And then when this week happened, I basically lost. I'm just like a deer in the headlights in the terms of my longer term stuff. I got no fucking idea. Excuse my language. I really, this breakdown of this trend line is not good. It is signaling some really low prices that I don't even necessarily want to think about. And so I'm focusing on managing risk and kind of like trying to take advantage of some of this intra-week, intra-month volatility. So that's where, yeah, I'm like more focused. I think this is a great environment for swing traders because these swings are freaking big. Multi-week, you get 2 weeks where price moves 20% back and forth. These are some really big swings that's what I'm focusing on now. And when I'm thinking about the long term, I'm like, well, shit, we should have never broken this trend line like we have now. And now the fact that we have and we've created lower highs and lower lows has got me like just going down the rabbit holes of, okay, so how much Bitcoin has been bought? Like, does that really make sense that all these ETFs are buying like all of this supply and price is just moving down? None of this makes sense to me. And I'm happy to admit that. And I'm kind of in your camp, Tone, that you know, maybe the bottom happens down around here, below 35. Maybe it happens here. It's just I'm just kind of guessing and waiting for signal and confirmation, trying to be as flexible as I can because here I was like irresponsibly bullish and not really thinking enough about managing risk and that sort of stuff. So I kind of am just making sure that I'm just telling myself, like, I don't know where this is going to be in 3 months or a year. Yeah, I think it's probably most likely going to consolidate through the election because it seems so tied to Trump winning this election. If Trump wins in November, we could be at 200K very, very short order. If that doesn't happen, I'm worried what could happen next year, and I don't really want to start spreading FUD because that's all it is. I've got fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and that's how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
All right. Uh,
We good?
okay. I mean, how much time we got? A few minutes?
Oh, as much as we want, mate.
Tyler, are there any hyperwaves that you're watching right now across any markets or any assets? I mean, like I pretty much called the perfect top on Nvidia, even though I missed my short, and then I pretty much called the perfect top on Tesla, even though I missed my short, and the Nasdaq and the S&P like had perfect tops. It was weekly, monthly, and daily MRI buys across those exchanges. The Dow was a little off base there, but to me, the Nasdaq and the S&P both topped perfectly on the MRI monthly and weekly at the same time. And but what do you think of any assets, and what do you think of the high flying Nvidia?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I've just had my head so in the crypto markets that I haven't really been paying any attention, but I did have Nvidia come across my desk recently, and I have the hyperwave already drawn up, so I might as well share. I haven't looked at it in a minute, but I think it's a really interesting one because I think this is a hyperwave, and I haven't really spent any time looking into it, but just my initial thought when I looked at this chart was that it's probably got a lot to do with them selling ASIC Bitcoin miners is maybe why there's so much interest in this chart. And I think the hyperwave is still intact. Yes. So here's the weekly. Wow. What an interesting one. I don't think I've ever seen one like this where, yes, we did get a close below this trend line. So hyperwave theory says one close below the trend line is done. But look, it's like it gapped below and closed green. And now
You can you can absolutely adjust that trend line to make sure it doesn't break. If you start that trend line on the green candle, and then you angle it so that it crosses the top of the green candle that made the low, it's still intact. No, you don't have to go that far. No, don't go that far down. No, not that green candle. The January 2024 green candle. Right, that one. And then you angle it to the top of the exactly. It's still intact.
Yep. All right. Little slight adjustment. This is still good there. So yeah, I think this thing is still intact. I think that dip was a really great buying opportunity, probably.
Yeah, I did say the buying opportunity would be at the prior swing high, which is at 95, and it's pretty close.
Yeah. I mean, this is basically textbook when you get the.
And if you turn on the MRI, you'll see how perfectly it topped. It topped just a few days early of the daily, but as far as the weekly and monthly MRI goes, it was perfect.
So yeah, I think that's probably a really important one. As I really and I don't like saying this, but I really think that Bitcoin's direction over the next year plus is going to largely come down to what the stock market does and what happens with interest rates. And I hate that they're getting so tied together, but I guess it's just kind of what's got to happen. If the S&P breaks down and the Nasdaq breaks down, then I'm going to be very worried about Bitcoin to follow. And we got to know that the S&P and the Nasdaq, how long have they been in this bull market? Like how much longer are they going to be able to sustain it? And when it falls apart, how many margin calls are going to cause every asset across the world to just dump very quickly? So seeing this is, I think, a really, really good sign. The fact that one of the most important stocks that everybody's kind of been watching, that's been leading, that's been driving a lot of the value, having that sort of nasty move below that really, in hindsight, creates for a beautiful V off of the trend line. That could really, if the S&P and Nasdaq are ready to kind of follow in its path and move to new highs, then Bitcoin absolutely should follow. And them breaking down amidst like the yen carry trade falling apart, and how fragile this system is, that 0.25% of a raise in the rates in Japan could cause everything to fall apart. It's like what else is another domino that could fall? It's just like like Tone was saying, it's like so risky. It's not many people are going to really be wanting to put a lot of money in very risky assets until they've been left behind. And this looks like a chart that's ready to maybe leave some people behind. That's I've never seen action like that on a hyperwave trend line where it opens this far below and then manages to close all the way back up here. I mean, that's something.
Yeah, that's fantastic. All right, let's wind it up.
Yep.
Well, guys, what a fantastic show. Sock, that was absolutely brilliant, mate. And Tone, fantastic question with the Nvidia. That was a great little surprise to see how good that chart looked. It's been an absolute pleasure. As I said, Sock, you're welcome anytime, mate. Maybe I'm quite busy in the next month, but let's do this again in 2 weeks and see where it plays out. I'd love to see Bitcoin put in a hard bottom here and get a nice W-shaped recovery, but as I agree with Sawcruhteez completely, I don't know. Back when Sock was 100% bullish when we did on the show, I had written down 6 reasons, all 6 reasons why I was insanely bullish, and none of them played out. So what the hell do I know? Do you know? But I also agree with Sawcruhteez that this is fantastic trading. Do you know, I've had a couple of good trades in the last week. It's been fantastic. So pay attention, watch all our shows, get different perspectives, and thank you so much, guys, for joining us. Tone, thanks for coming on, mate. Thank you so much.